I was at the local dog park today with our puppy Cooper, and I'm going to show you a little video of him. Now, for those of you that are like, "Oh, isn't he cute?" Listen, I just want to say I know that you have to be the mature believers in the room, right? I mean, you obviously love Jesus because you love dogs. And for those of you that said, "Why is Pastor David wasting our time showing us a dog video? I thought this was supposed to be about community groups." I'm just going to say a little prayer for you in my heart right now, because it wasn't like I was showing you something oppressive for your soul, like a cat video or anything like that. But listen, today I was at the dog park with our puppy Cooper, and I thought, man, what a great town we live in. Not only does our town, through our tax dollars and their appropriations of it, provide places for adults to gather and safe places for kids to play in a park, but they even provide places for animal lovers to get together and for the dogs to run around and people to have conversations while they do. We live in a phenomenal town. But you know what? While I was there, I had this other question run through my mind. What's your overall attitude when it comes to government? Now, maybe you love your local government, but what attitude comes to your mind when you think about our state leadership, or maybe our national leadership, or maybe those that are called to serve and protect, our police officers? Does your attitude change depending on the circumstances of who's sitting in the seats of leadership? Whether they have an R in front of their name, or they have a D in front of their name, or they're an independent. Does your attitude or thoughts toward them dependent on whether they share your same views, whether they're people who love Jesus, or whether they're some of the most evil people around? Listen, the Apostle Paul wants to share with us that our attitude as believers really should be the same no matter who's in charge. In Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 8, he makes it very clear to the church there in Rome that our thoughts and our behavior towards those in authority over us say much more about our view of God than it does about our view of those leaders. If we really believe that God is sovereign, then we have to believe that God has ordained leadership to take charge over us. And so here's the thing. Sometimes God ordains leaders to be very generous and kind toward the people that they're leading. And then other times, God ordains leaders to lead us through a season of even oppression, to help us really understand what he's trying to teach us and to learn some valuable lessons. But the Apostle Paul makes it clear, no matter who's in charge, whether they're holy or evil, whether they share your views or whether they don't, whether they're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent, our behavior is supposed to be so exemplary that no matter who's in charge, they look at us and say, wow, those people who believe in Jesus, they call themselves Christians, man, they lead such amazing, exemplary lives. I wish we had more of those people in our town. I wish we had more of those people in our state. I wish more of those people were in this country. Man, it would be a much more unbelievable place. Now, here's the thing. If the Apostle Paul could write that about the leadership of Rome, then certainly we can take that and apply that about our leadership. Emperor Nero, who was in charge while Paul wrote this letter to the Romans, soon after this started to persecute Christians. He tortured them for fun. He would actually take them and capture them and even use some of them as human torches in his garden. Now, if Paul could tell believers in Rome to respect an evil dictator like Nero, and to lead exemplary lives in the midst of that context, with what would happen just a few years later, how much more should we as Americans be respectful of our leadership, no matter who's in charge, to lead exemplary lives that no matter who it is, they would point to and say, wow, we need more of these kind of people. I wonder what would happen if believers who call themselves Democrats, or believers who call themselves Republicans, or believers who call themselves independents, or believers who say, I could care less about politics. I wonder what would happen if all of those believers put our identity in Christ above every other identity. What would happen if no matter who was in charge, our response and our respect and our behavior was so exemplary that it didn't matter who was in charge? People would say, wow, we need more of those kind of people in our midst. I wonder if that would change the divisive nature that's going on right now in our country. Well, if nothing else, we'd be obedient to what Paul said. And so today in your community groups, you're going to go through Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 8. You're going to dig a little deeper. We're going to answer some tough questions like, is there ever a time when civil disobedience is not just okay, but it's actually encouraged by God? We're going to look at that and some other questions about our attitudes towards government. So in your community groups right now, you can just go through the discussion guide. If you're not in a community group, you can just gather some friends, coworkers together, sit around the table with your family. You can download the discussion guide in the link below and have a good time looking through Romans chapter 13, verses 1 through 8. But in the meantime, let's be respectful. Let's lead exemplary lives as citizens who know that our true citizenship is in another home, in another place called heaven, not here on this earth. Let's respect God's authority, and because we do, be respectful of any and every person who's been called to lead us. Have a great day.